So we set up 2 minutes.
Okay.
What'd you do today? We should have some makeup. We should put the makeup
Oh
on.
yes, I'm so shiny actually.
So
I thought I was gonna have time to go home and get myself together.
You mean you have a day job?
How about that?
Maybe that's what we should talk about. Why all entrepreneurs seem to have like 5 or 10 day jobs.
Right.
5 or 10 day jobs. If anyone online has 5 or 10 day jobs, I completely understand. I've got like a couple day jobs to an exponent. It's not quite 8 o'clock, so.
You have hyphenated positions.
What is a hyphenated position?
So because you have, instead of saying you have 5 jobs, you just have your X hyphen X hyphen X hyphen.
I'm not Malcolm.
Okay, no you're not. No, we're hearing it. I won't argue with that.
But he just took me right to the gut.
There's only one.
Oh, you're so mean.
It's good.
I'm gonna leave now.
Probably.
Is it 8 o'clock?
Not yet.
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, a few
So,
more seconds.
For those of you in TV land online, it's not quite 8 o'clock. This does not have any alcohol in it, unfortunately, because it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It's
Okay.
8 o'clock.
And now it's 8 o'clock here. Okay.
Take it away.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another live streaming of Bitcoin for Introverts. I am Maureen Murat, Crowdy Advisors. You can follow me at Crowdy Advisors on Instagram and Twitter. And I also have a Crowdy Advisors page that you can join as well. And this is...
I'm the introvert. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Well, we'll let him tell you where you can follow him later. So this evening, we are talking about our alternatives to blockchain. And I guess in terms of the topic, oftentimes when we say alternatives to blockchain, people think of other types of software and other types of programs that have come out. But I think we should probably start kind of like at the basic level, right?
Stop reading my notes.
No,
I
okay.
said reading my notes.
I just looked down. I don't need you notes. So to get started, what would you say is something someone should consider when they're thinking about leveraging blockchain for their solution?
Well, because my notes say paper.
Yes.
See, because you read my
Yes.
notes.
So what about paper?
Well, when we talk about alternative blockchains, it all goes back to, do you actually need a blockchain?
Okay.
And so I don't think people actually address that. I like to say blockchain isn't hot sauce. You can't put that shit on everything.
Right.
And so part of it is, do you actually need a blockchain before you start looking for an alternative? Because you might not actually need blockchain. So, do you need a blockchain? What are the requirements for a blockchain from your perspective?
About whether you need one or what it provides.
Both.
I think whether you need a blockchain really depends on what your solution is trying to do. And one of the things that I think to consider is whether something, an alternative such as a database, right, would suffice. And then in that case, you probably could save the time and energy that it would take in trying to fit your solution into some sort of, and leveraging blockchain to make it work. In terms of like what blockchains tend to have, we like to think that it has decentralization, right? Scalability and security. And we all know that when it comes to security, there's some gray areas here and there. But those are the 3 things you technically want to think about when you're trying to leverage blockchain. If you can, what you're building on can accommodate those 3 things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree. I'm writing myself a note because I have another question for you. So, does your thing need to be decentralized? Yes or no?
Right.
If it doesn't, well then that's useless. So
Okay.
you shouldn't probably, it doesn't need a blockchain. Particularly if you have different levels of permission built in, you can build that into a blockchain, but it seems like an awful lot of work to do that if it doesn't need to be decentral. Do you need an immutable record or ledger? Some things you actually need to be able to edit. So again, if you don't need an immutable record, do you need a blockchain? Probably not. You can use any type of database, Excel, paper. Big fan of paper. But
I
it's a
mean,
legit thing.
the most biggest business. Even law offices are trying to get away from paper, so we are paper heavy. So
I'm a fan of Dunder Mifflin, and a Dunder Mifflin paper will last forever. Actually, I
Okay.
read a thing from Ink magazine that says when you write things down in a notebook or on a piece of paper, you remember them longer.
oh yeah, that brought me through law school and bar review, honestly. And people thought I was crazy because I used to write all my notes through, but
So an alternative to blockchain, if you're
it
in
was
law
great.
school, is you need one of these unhackable devices along with some of this material.
Yes.
And so you mentioned that we were talking about decentralization, so I have a question for you. It's a super hard technical question.
Okay.
Is something decentralized? I mean, if something is decentralized, is it automatically distributed?
That is a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think generally speaking, when you talk about decentralization, the point is that it will be distributed, right? Because if we're talking about blockchain, that's one of the things that we think about when we think about blockchain technology, that it will be decentralized and it will be distributed. But then we also see that there are permissioned blockchains and there are all these variations. So I don't know if it's automatic.
Mhm.
I don't think so. What would you say?
I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Because when I think of some of the big blockchains that are out there that everybody's so excited and pumped up about, because we're Lamboing it to the moon. When we're talking about, we haven't talked about Lambo to the moon in a minute.
No.
But so when I look at like EOS, that's like a very centralized thing,
Mhm.
in my opinion. And so it doesn't even qualify to be decentralized, so I can't think of it as distributed. So I don't think, but EOS is still very distributed because different people are trying to build different applications on top or the app on top.
Mhm.
And so it's not decentralized, it's more like a centralized distributed thingamajiggy.
But I mean, I don't know if it's one, and I mean, if it's a one and done type thing, that if it's decentralized, it has to be totally decentralized, or if can it be partially decentralized? And I think that's where EOS is, at least for them, that's what they're kind of promoting, right? That it's, they have some centralization aspects, but they are partially decentralized because of how you can, I mean, assuming somebody has figured out how to vote for the blocks, but that there's how they, I guess, issue the blocks is centralized, but how you know, get the tokens, etc., that's supposed to be decentralized. So, I mean, I think projects can be, or blockchains can be partially decentralized.
Okay. I don't disagree with you, but since we do need to talk about alternatives to
Yes.
blockchain.
I mean, EOS is an alternative, right? We gave one. I wanted to start a little more basic, like your paper example.
Paper
But
is not basic. Paper was a
EOS.
milestone accomplishment in human history, second only to fire.
Okay. And writing on stones.
Paper was the upgrade to writing on stone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know my history clearly.
Her law.
This is Mr. Geography. I mean, what is it, Mr.
I don't know.
What do I call you sometimes?
Anthropology.
Anthropology. Sorry, Mr. Dr. Anthropology.
How do you not know that paper beats rock for a
Yes.
reason?
Yes, you're right.
It is literally an improvement.
That's true.
Do you know how paper rock is?
Well, that's what I was saying. Paper came before.
No, after.
Oh, after. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, rocks existed well before.
Well, okay, that's true. Rocks did exist well before.
We're gonna have to have.
And I feel like that's what I just said, but okay. Anyway, so another alternative that I can think of is if you don't necessarily, like you were saying earlier, if you don't necessarily need a blockchain, maybe you are okay with having a central database, but then maybe it has an API running in the background, right? Something, especially if you're an e-commerce business, or you are, something similar, or you're maybe doing services online where an API would be the most efficient way to get your transactions cleared. Maybe blockchain is not necessarily the most beneficial way to get to that, right? A central database with API running in the background, such as eBay or some of the other e-commerce sites. That might be a good alternative.
So can we take a step back as
Sure.
we talk about alternatives to blockchains? Because one, do you need a blockchain? It really depends on what your business is.
Okay.
Because we're talking about alternatives to blockchain, which is a technology. And so does blockchain teach you business? Is my first question to you.
Does blockchain teach you business?
Yes.
Blockchain, in my mind, is software. It's a tool. I don't think it teaches you anything. Wouldn't you say that what you're learning or what your experiences is that you are making, you're putting it onto the blockchain?
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't know if I understand that question fully.
Because we're talking about alternatives to blockchain. but
Right.
Blockchain should be addressing a problem or a challenge,
Okay.
right? And so, first off is, one, do you need blockchain to address this problem or this challenge? And so then that next question is, if you're addressing a problem or a challenge, you should probably formulate that into a business, unless you're in the nonprofit social impact realm, which is slightly different. So, does blockchain help you do your business?
Okay. A side note to the social impact and type of initiatives, just because you're a nonprofit or social impact initiative does not mean that you shouldn't think that you should have a business and earn revenue. Okay, I just want that to be clear.
The NFL is a nonprofit.
And they have no problem earning revenue even with all their foolishness. So, but I'm sorry, and what your question was?
Does blockchain teach you business?
I don't think so. I don't think blockchain teaches you business, but I think if you have a business idea that you believe blockchain will actually make it more efficient as opposed to just using it because everyone else is using it, I think that is what you should be more concerned about, not necessarily the other way around. I think you should have a business idea first before you try to leverage blockchain. Because then you're like trying to fit something, what is it?
A problem into a solution.
Yeah.
Or rather, you have a solution looking for a problem.
Looking for a problem, right?
And so when we talk about the Bitcoin blockchain, Ethereum, Python, Hyperledger, Viper, and all those other solutions to your business problem, the question is, so as you consider, one, do I need a blockchain solution? And then two, which language am I going to actually use? You should use the language that makes sense for your business. Because often we see people where they're trying to come up with a solution to a problem that doesn't exist yet. And so how are you going to monetize that solution if you don't have a problem that it actually, or if you don't have if you don't have an actual challenge or thing you're trying to fix? Does that make sense?
Yes. So this is before we even determine what kind of technology we will use. We have a problem, we have a solution, and then we look for what will make our solution more efficient.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, whether we're talking about Python or Hyperledger or Viper, those are tools that you use for your business.
Right.
So an alternative to blockchain is, well, first you have a blockchain-based business. And
Okay.
so many things are not suitable for blockchain. We just had a really interesting conversation with a real estate firm talking about tokenization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a business where, yes, blockchain offers a variety of solutions, whether it's getting rid of intermediaries like middlemen, like the PMI folks, the primary mortgage insurance folks,
Right.
title companies, tokenizing real estate. That's where blockchain is a really good solution. There's harder applications in healthcare where, yes, it'd be really cool to put electronic health records on a blockchain, but can you actually do that? And is it the most cost-effective thing?
Right.
Because as we're thinking, hey, blockchain is going to change the world, yeah, it's not going to change the entire world. There's some things that blockchain aren't appropriate for.
Right.
So Bitcoin blockchain has issues with scalability.
Right.
It wasn't actually designed to scale. I put a comment that expecting the Bitcoin blockchain to scale is like wondering why my 13-month-old nephew can't fly.
Yes, we saw that.
Right? And so
That was on your LinkedIn, yes.
it wasn't designed to do that.
Right.
Now, when we look at Ethereum, that's a little bit different. Most of the ICOs or initial coin offerings, like 85% of them are on the Ethereum blockchain.
Right.
And so,
Because it promises the value of having smart contracts deal with the transactions.
go on.
And I would just say that transactions, I think there's this perception that if it's a transaction, it has to be monetary, and that's not necessarily the case. So with smart contracts, the way I think about it is just like a condition. It doesn't necessarily have to do with dollars, even though oftentimes that's the case. But just like if this particular thing happens, then something else happens, and then and that's the transaction.
How smart are contracts?
They are not smart, nor are they contracts.
So what does that mean?
So in the sense that, first, they're not smart because they don't work on their own. Like I said before, you have to have some sort of a command for them, right? So you have to have that, the fact that if this happens, then, so it's an if then statement. So if this happens, then that happens. And so I say it's not smart because you need those commands to make it work. It's not an automated type thing. I would say that they're not contracts because coming from a legal perspective, they're not legally binding. You can't bring a line of code to court and tell me that I didn't do something right and then expect relief in the form of
So are you,
cash or
are you
anything like
saying,
that. So, and then you also need, certain aspects to a contract, right? To make a contract legal, you need consideration, you need, a bargain for exchange, and you need, a manifestation or like the two minds to meet, or two, no, assent of the minds.
well, I don't know what.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were gonna say something, but yeah, so for a legal contract, for a contract in general, when we think of a contract, we think of something that's legally binding. And right now, the way that these are working, they are not, the smart contracts generally are not legally binding. Granted, there are, companies such as, Consensus, they have their open law, program where they are going to try to make some of their contracts legally binding, but they're also being created by lawyers, so
So
that would make more sense to me.
my question to you is, is code law?
No,
So smart contracts aren't smart and code isn't law.
no, I like that line. Can I use it?
What?
Code is not law.
No, that's copyrighted.
Okay.
I just copyrighted it. So as we're thinking about alternatives to blockchain, going back to it, we have Hyperledger and Python and Viper. And so I was reading a little bit up on Viper, where Viper has some more security features, some enhanced security features that Ethereum doesn't. And so it's actually not meant to replace Ethereum, but to complement. They're supposed to run hand in hand.
Okay.
And so if you take a Python class, Chain House, ChainHaus.com. The good folks in New York from Jamil, they offer a Python class, which is helpful for developing blockchain technology because Viper is very similar to Python, but again, it's not meant to replace it. There's some features regarding security that make it more reliable. So that is not necessarily an alternative to blockchain, but it's a complement to it. And then there's this other thing, we haven't talked about Tangled in like 6 months, which in blockchain time is like 4 or 5 years.
Well, yeah.
Our hash graph, they exist, sorta.
Yeah, I mean, they all have, I mean, all of these alternatives promise something, right? Like that they'll be more energy efficient or that they're more scalable than blockchain. And in certain instances, that might be the case, but I think the issues that these alternatives have been having is that just like the original blockchain, they can't meet all three of the attributes that, that describe a blockchain, right? Like if they have scalability and they have decentralization, then their security is kind of messed up, right? Or if they have scalability, then maybe they're not really decentralized because the only way that they're able to make it scale is so that because they have control over, a significant part of it. So, I mean, I guess that's what Tangle does, right? They have their thing is that they're more energy efficient because of how they tangle
I've not seen any good Tangle
what's the word I'm like looking for?
I haven't seen any Tangle products or things that have launched using Tangle. It's more of a theory in my book.
Okay. I mean, a lot of these are, right? They have this thought that they're going to revolutionize the blockchain, what's the word, not community, but just blockchain technology. And so then they're raising money, lots of money to make this work, right? So we're still waiting to see how that pans out.
So my question to you is, when you're thinking about blockchain, in my head, the primary focus is business. So I always like to ask when people say, "Hey, can I get on your calendar and talk to you about blah 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 blah?" I'm like, "Okay, fine." So I ask a series of my first question I ask is, "How are you going to make $1 in 30 days?" That actually kills 99% of the blockchain businesses because it occurs to them that they're not trying to form a business; they're just trying to raise money.
Okay.
And so
Or that by the time, and then I guess the 90 days they're thinking about when they're getting, making $1 is via the fundraising period,
yeah,
which is not revenue.
so when I look at blockchain as a tool, most people leverage blockchain for ICOs or initial coin offerings, which are actually just fundraising
Mhm.
mechanisms for that blockchain business. And so if you've succeeded in raising money, like Tron, right, and you go out and you buy BitTorrent, which is cool, you made $120 million
Investment or purchase.
acquisition,
Acquisition,
but you still don't really have the tech behind it, behind Tron itself. Now they're more like a private, they're more like an equity, they're private equity or hedge fund. And so Tron is an investment alternative.
Okay, as opposed to a blockchain alternative. Okay.
And so, one, you need to focus on the business, how you're gonna make $1 in 30 days or 90 days. And two, when we talk about blockchain, are you gonna get excited about Linux that runs my watch, or my iPhone? Because that's really about building a sense of community.
Right.
And so I think that if one of your components is building a sense of community, or one of your goals for your business is building a sense of community, then yes, you should consider blockchain as a way of connecting and incentivizing people to participate in this ecosystem that you're building.
Okay.
Because community building, I like to say that until the AIs take over, humans are the only customers we've got. And so when you're looking at, should I use blockchain for my business, how is that going to help you, one, generate revenue, and two, build a community? Because it doesn't matter how fancy your blockchain is, if no one's using it, it's like having the cure for cancer and never telling anybody. It's sort of useless.
Right. I mean, the other thing I would add to that is that even if the blockchain solution would make sense, like, is that the first thing you should do, right? Like, I don't see anything wrong with starting out with an alternative such as a database, or maybe if you feel like you need more, some sort of storage or security type service, and so maybe you go with a cloud service or something like that, and then you leverage blockchain later. That's something to consider too. I don't think you should necessarily just think, okay, well, it has to be on the blockchain, otherwise it won't be successful. I mean, there have been plenty of businesses that have been very, very successful without blockchain, so. And like you said, it's not for everything. So that's one thing to consider. If whether you need blockchain or whether you even need, or whether one of the alternatives would actually better serve your goals.
So I'm just gonna do a quick summary so I can pivot a little bit.
Okay.
It's, at least in my head, alternatives to blockchain. One, do you need a blockchain? Two, that's based upon your business need or driver. And so if you don't have a business need or driver for something that's immutable, distributed, and ledger, then no, you don't need a blockchain at all. Yes, you can look at different technologies like Tangle or Hashgraph, but again, it goes back to, from the business perspective, do you actually need it?
Mhm.
I love having conversations with the techies and the nerds, because you guys get really passionate. It's like, oh my God, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons all over again. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? Does the technical aspects of it actually matter?
Okay.
I don't think any of us have ever been to a Linux
Convention, right? Yeah.
You might have been to Apple convention, but you've never been to a Linux convention.
Mhm.
And so at some point, blockchain will be like Linux or Python or C++ or HTML. No one's going to go to your HTML convention. And so blockchain is going to go that way.
But does your iPhone work though?
It does, but that's a different story, because the iPhone, because this is where we're going to pivot a little bit.
Okay.
Because the iPhone is more of a community connection. Is you're either passionate about iPhones or you're passionate about Android.
Mhm.
You're really not a middle person. But those are because you develop a product. And so we were on a panel a couple of weeks ago, and someone was talking about, when do you stop talking about how your tech works and start marketing it?
Right.
And so I want to just pivot a little bit, because we've been talking about alternatives to blockchain, when it's really, does your business need this thing? And then as a business owner, do you also need to be a technologist?
Mm.
I'm asking you this.
Oh, you're asking me? No, I don't think so, and I think you alluded to that earlier, and I would have said something, but no, I don't think that you need to be a technologist to have a blockchain-based business. I think that there are plenty of people who are technologists who can help you out. And honestly, when it comes to businesses, you don't need, it shouldn't be, I think, a team of all technologists or a team of all salesperson people or a team of all biz dev people. I think if you mix up the team, you'd have a wider reach. And I like to say that oftentimes the folks who are creating the tech often explain or talk about the tech like their customers will be tech people like them. And I think we have to kind of, take a step back and think about who will your customers be,
Who are
who will your
customers?
Can I finish my sentence before you interrupt me? Hold on to that. Let's put a pin in it. Who are your customers? Who will they be? And how are you going to engage them, right? And so maybe not, like if Apple came out and said, oh, guess what? We're going to use Linux and and it's going to be doing all this stuff in the background. How interested would you be rather than them saying, look at the beautiful photos you can take and the phone calls and it's like your computer in your pocket, so you have to know what will reach your audience. And what is a customer?
Oh yeah.
A customer is someone who pays you for your good product or service.
Oh, so you need to have a good product or service before you have a customer?
Otherwise, what are you selling?
An ICO.
Okay. I fell right into that one. I fell right into that one. You're selling digital code.
So, we're talking about alternatives to blockchain.
Yes.
There is no alternative to a customer. And so,
Okay.
when you're looking at your tech, don't get stuck in the weeds of how your tech works. Tell people so they're aware of the emotional component to it. iPhones work well because our smartphones in general, because it's probably the first thing you check when you wake up. It's no more than an arm's length away from you. When you're separated from it, you probably have some anxiety. You're like, oh my God, where's my phone? And so there's some amazing technology in your smartphone, and your customers don't care about it. Because most of your customers, they're digital natives, their expectation is that, yes, I should be able to, I don't want a GoPro, a GPS, a Garmin, a camera.
Mm.
This is the international symbol for wind the camera film. You remember that?
Oh,
You
yeah.
do that?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so their expectation is that they have this amazing device that has consolidated, 10 or 12 other devices into it.
So that was my point about does it work though. So like we don't necessarily talk about what technology is in the iPhone or your cell phone, but you also don't say, oh, I wish, you're not worried about it because you know it works.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something else to consider. Whatever you're deploying, if it works, then and it's not a blockchain, who cares? It works, right? And you can sell it.
Excellent.
So I think that's all.
So we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Next week we are going to be talking somewhere. Where are we going next week?
Next week, okay, what is today? Today's the 2nd? Okay, so next week we are going to Dubai and Mauritius for about 10 days. You are going to be Master of Ceremonies at the Mauritius Blockchain Conference.
You have such better hand poses than I do.
Yes, but they didn't call me. Maybe they'll see this and you might get replaced. But in the meantime, you are scheduled to be the MC of that, and then we have a few meetings to attend and things like that.
So yeah,
And we got Miss Isioma joining us as well.
Oh,
So that should be fun.
Isio is coming to Dubai. We're having some meeting with some government folks in Dubai about a couple of projects we're trying to launch there. And then in Mauritius, we're very excited about going down there. If you look at the map of Africa, go all the way to the bottom, skip Madagascar, Mauritius is right next door to it. Right next door to being relative. So I just want to say, as alternatives to blockchain, think first of what is my business case, what is my business use for whatever technology you're going to adopt. If it doesn't need to be distributed with an immutable ledger and decentralized, you probably don't need a blockchain. There's probably some off-the-shelf solution that works 110% well for you.
That will be more effective and more economical.
Correct. And particularly when we talk about the MVP, your minimum viable product, whatever that is that gets you to that first dollar faster, sooner, because if you can turn around a dollar in 30 days, that means you have a legit business. Otherwise, you have an ICO, you're gonna raise some money, and 98% of ICOs fail. Or they're gonna fail. Some are still going through their death throes. So that's it. My name's Samson Williams. You can follow me at Hustle Fun Baby on the Instagrams and the Twitters, as well as the internets. And this is Maureen Morat
Yes,
with her
at
excellent
Crowdy,
hand figures.
at Crowdy Advisors. You can follow me on Instagram or
What is
Twitter.
that? What is that?
Because this is me.
What is that? Hands up, don't shoot.
Don't say that. That's not funny at all. Oh my God. Thank you guys for sitting with us. Have a good one. Good night.